When we think about the playing style of Eddie Van Halen, what technique comes to mind immediately? For many of us, it's the tapping, of course. It's such a staple of so many iconic Van Halen songs and solos, and I don't think it's crazy to assume that as a consequence of Ed pioneering this technique, there are parts of his playing that are unfortunately overlooked by many guitar players, and so it's my hope and intention with this video that I can get you to look beyond the tapping and appreciate more of what made this man's playing style so just unique and incredible to listen to. And to help with this, I have recruited a good friend of mine. His name is Jamie Humphries. He's an excellent guitar player and instructor with his own YouTube channel that I've linked down below. But he also happens to be the biggest Eddie Van Halen fan that I've ever met. And so he took some time out of his day to hop on a call with me, do some playing, and demonstrate some of the things that he really admires about Ed's playing style beyond the tapping. And we're going to hear from Jamie later on, but before we get into the video, I just want to say shout out to Neuro DSP for sponsoring yet another video on this channel. It's been a joy to work with them and use their plugins on the channel over the past couple of months. And today I'm not using the Corey Wong plugin, which you've heard in the past few videos on my channel. I am using their Archetype Gojira plugin, and I've built a nice Eddie Van Halen inspired preset using that plugin alone. And towards the end of that video, I'm gonna go over that in detail. So stick around for that if you want to hear how I was able to get this EVH inspired tone. That'll be towards the end of the video. But let's get into the video. Let's talk about some of the things that made Eddie Van Halen so great beyond the tapping. And the first thing I want to talk about is his use of swing rhythms in his riffs. Now, Ed was a master at incorporating swing rhythms into his songs, and the riffs in I'm the One and Hot for Teacher are both great examples of this. So let's listen to them. Here's the first riff in I'm the One. And here's a riff from Hot for Teacher. This is the one that comes directly after the big two-handed tapping sequence in the intro. In both riffs, Ed is applying a heavy amount of swing. He is not playing straight 16th notes, he's swinging them, and at a high tempo. This is quite challenging to do. I think non-guitar players would hear a song like Hot for Teacher and they would assume that the tapping sequence in the intro would be the hardest part of the song, like if not that, then the solo. But what I found from learning it years ago was that the tapping sequence, you know, I think most guitar players can get that down if you've been playing for a few years and you've got reasonable technique. It's not so hard to get that down because rhythmically it's not that complex, but the riff that comes after it, applying swing to that low F sharp, or that low F because he's tuned down half a step, as am I, by the way, for all of this video. Applying swing to that note at such a high tempo, it's challenging if you've never done it before. And so as a result of that, a lot of guitar players who try to cover this song, they make the mistake of just playing straight 16th notes on that low F sharp or that low F. Don't know why I played that, 10 times the speed of the original there, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. They make the mistake of playing straight 16th notes on that riff when that's incorrect, it's swung. So the difference is this, let's just listen to the riff, how Ed plays it. what I'm doing there? It sounds more bouncy when you add the swing to it. So let's just compare straight 16th notes with swung 16th notes so that you can hear the difference clearly. I'll do this slowly. So here's straight 16th notes. Here's swung 16th notes. So try practicing that at home. If you're brand new to trying out swing rhythms in your rhythm playing, just take that slowly to begin with and try and get a nice bit of bounce when you're playing that. Because that's what Ed is adding to those riffs with those swing rhythms. And it's a nice bit of bounce, a nice bit of liveliness. And so you can try incorporating those same rhythms into riffs of your own if you're someone that enjoys songwriting, writing riffs at home. Why not try adding in swing rhythms to spice things up a bit? And that's, you know, the first thing that I just wanted to address with regards to Ed's rhythm playing. It's not easy to play swing rhythms at such high tempos, and that's what is so impressive about those two songs, you know, Hot for Teacher and I'm the One. It's just, you know, I've watched a video of Phil X on his YouTube channel talking about the song I'm the One, and he even said it's, for him as a big Eddie Van Halen fan, it's still hard to replicate that same swing rhythm. And so it just goes to show, man, like Ed was a master at doing that. So that's swing rhythms covered. Don't play straight 16th notes on Hot for Teacher. Please don't do it. Work on the swing rhythms. Yeah, the tapping sequence in the intro, that's cool, but you also have to nail that swing rhythm if you want to play it correctly. Now let's talk about one of my favorite lead techniques from Eddie Van Halen, and this is his use of what I would just call repeated notes. And a great example of what I'm talking about can be heard in the solo to Hot for Teacher. So here is the exact lick in that solo that I'm talking about. So this is one of my favorite Eddie Van Halen licks. It just sounds so cool and so unique. And he starts out by playing the note E twice. The first time he plays the E, he picks the open high E string, which I like to pick with my middle finger. I like to hybrid pick that. Then he plays the same note, same pitch, but this time fretted at fret 5 on the B string. Okay? So the exact same note, just played twice in different locations. And then after that, he pulls off the 2, and again to the open B string. So that's the lick. You know, when you hear it in the context of the solo at the usual tempo, it can sound more complex than it actually is, but it is deceptively simple, I would say. The hard part, of course, is getting it up to speed and adding in the palm muting. Now, you want to palm mute the B string when you play this riff, when you play this lick, rather. Because hopefully you can hear there that when I palm mute the B string versus not palm muting it, when I palm mute it, there's more note separation, and that gives the lick this nice percussive effect when you speed it up. So that's one of my favorite Eddie Van Halen licks. I want to show you something else that you can do if you move up one octave. So that was kind of based out of position 1 of you know what that scale is. If we move up an octave, here's a similar lick that you can play. Okay, so what I'm doing there is I am picking the root note of the scale on the high E string, then hammering onto the same note but fretted on the B string, then pulling off, then finishing by picking the flat 5 of the blues scale on the G string. Okay, so again, this lick is starting with two of the exact same note, just played in different locations. And if you add palm muting to the G and B strings, again you get a nice amount of note separation and a nice percussive effect when you speed it up. Now I want to talk about Ed's use of triads in his riffs. So let's take a listen to the riff from Runnin' with the Devil. The chords in this song are C, D, G, A and E, and they're all major chords. Now, if Ed played them just as bar chords or as power chords even, the riff might have sounded like this. But of course, that's not what the riff goes like. What Ed plays instead is major triads exclusively on the second string set, which is the D, G and B strings, those three strings grouped together. And for the C, D and E major chords, he plays these triad shapes. Same triad shape for all of those chords, the C, D and E. Now, these are known as second inversion triads. Now, if you don't know what that means, you can go and learn about that. Learn about triad inversions in the last video that I posted about Hendrix's rhythm playing. It's free to watch on my channel, so you have no excuse for not going and watching it if you want to learn what these are. But to relate these triad shapes to something that you should all know watching this video, let's look at a major bar chord with the root note on the 5th string. Can you see there that within this major bar chord there is a second inversion major triad? We're just taking away this note that's on the 5th string and we're left with these three notes. And what the note on the 5th string is the root note, which for this chord would be C. But we can take that away because there's still a root note on the G string. This is also the note C. So these three notes make up a C major chord. We've got C, E and G, the root, the 3rd and 5th of the chord. So a triad is just a 3-note chord, a chord in its most basic form. And so that's what's going on for the C, D and E major chords. C, D, E. Okay, now a second inversion triad has the 5th on the lower string, the root in the middle string, and the 3rd on the top string. And I'm pointing that out to you because the triads that he plays for the G and A major chords are a different shape. And here's what they look and sound like. G, A. Okay, so these are still major triads, but as you can see, they are a different shape to the triad shapes that we use for C, D, and E. And that's because they're called first inversion triads. So like I just said, a second inversion triad has the 5th on the lowest string, the root note in the middle, almost forgot, the 3rd is on the top string. For first inversion triads, the 3rd is in the bass, the 5th is in the middle, and the root is on top. But let's just forget about the theory for a second and see if we can relate these triad shapes to something that you might already know. So some of you watching this may already know these major chord shapes. So if you know those major chord shapes, you can see that within that, on the D, G and B strings, if we omit this note and just play these, we've got a major triad, okay? We've got all the notes of the chord. We've got the root, the 3rd and the 5th. So in the first inversion triad, you've got the third in the bass, fifth in the middle, and the root note on top. So the root notes are on the B string for these triads. So here's G, here's A, and here's the major triads built around those notes. Again, if you want to learn more about triads, you can watch the last video I posted on my channel, or if you want to learn about them in a more in-depth and structured manner, then I would recommend checking out my online courses, linked in the description box below. But I'm explaining all of this to you guys because I want you to understand that if you are someone who enjoys writing their own riffs, writing their own songs, but you feel a bit limited in terms of the tools you have at your disposal when it comes to rhythm playing. Maybe you only know bar chords, power chords, and open chords. If that's the case, I would really strongly suggest that you start learning about triads, because as you can hopefully hear in this Running with the Devil riff, playing it with major triads on this string set sounds so much more different to just playing it as power chords or as bar chords. So let's just listen to the riff again. To my ears, that sounds so much better, so much more interesting than this. And it's not that power chords and bar chords and open chords are useless after you learn triads. Of course, that's not the case. It's just that triads are another tool that you can add to your arsenal, and they are so useful not only for rhythm playing or songwriting, but also for lead playing as well. So definitely learn about triads. Okay, now we are going to hear from Jamie Humphries about what he thinks made Eddie Van Halen such a great player beyond the tapping. And stick around to the end of the video if you want to know how I got this tone, because I'm going to go over my preset using the Archetype Gojira plugin at the end of the video. Now let's hear from Jamie. Alright, Jamie, you are definitely the biggest Eddie Van Halen fan that I know personally, and you've been studying his playing style for a long time, so I feel like you are the perfect person to ask. What about it do you think deserves more attention from guitar players interested in his style?
100% his rhythm playing. You know, his rhythm playing is something that many people overlook. I hate it when I see people talking about Eddie and calling him a shredder, because he was not a shredder. He was, you know, he when you read interviews with him, he listened to Jeff Beck, and he listened to Eric Clapton, and he listened to Jimmy Page. And according to a lot of the videos that I've seen recently from Wolfgang, and also doing a bit of research for a video that I shot recently, he liked AC/DC. Other than that, he didn't really pay any attention to other guitar players. He just did his thing. So when you listen to the lead playing, there's a lot of sort of fast blues. You know, the tapping stuff came from, I think, watching Jimmy Page doing the Heartbreaker thing, and also Billy Gibbons as well. But I think something that's really important about his playing, his rhythm playing, we could sit here and talk for hours on it, and I've just chosen to sort of talk about one tiny little facet of the playing that is a reoccurring theme across so many songs, which is his use of triads. Now, you can hear him doing that on Jump, which is obviously played on the keyboards, but you can actually take that same approach and see it in so many different songs. You can see it with Running with the Devil. You can see it within Unchained. You can see it within Ain't Talking About Love. There's so many songs where he used the triads against a static root note. It was used all of the time. So effectively what he does, whether or not he knew this, I don't know. He claimed in many interviews that he didn't know any music theory, yet he did study classical piano. And so I think there must have been a certain amount of that rubbed off on him. But I think effectively what he's doing is that when, you know, say something like Jump, although that's obviously a keyboard driven track, you know, he's playing in the key of C, and the triads are based around G, C, and F. So you're playing the first triad of the harmonized scale, which is C. You're playing the fourth triad of the harmonized scale, which is F. And you're playing the fifth triad of the harmonized scale, which is G. So it's having a very sort of underlying major tonality to it. But then he does this all across the board. If we look at, say, Panama, and that's one of their best love songs. It was obviously from 1984. What I'll do is I'll play through the introduction, and then we can have a look at what he's doing. Hopefully I'll play this correctly. So effectively what he's doing there, he's playing like an E major triad, then an E sus, but then he plays a B triad, but all of it is against that that E root note. And then he transposes that down into the key of D. So there you have the D triad, the D sus 4 triad, and then you have the A triad as well. So that's kind of primarily where that introduction's coming from. But then even here, we have that C sharp minor chord. I absolutely love that portion there, because there he's treating, it's like he's treating A as the 4 chord of the key of E major, because you have that B triad. So you're playing a B triad up with the A root. So you can hear it has that real sort of strong Lydian tonality about it.
Yeah.
And so that kind of occurs a hell of a lot throughout his rhythm playing. You know, I don't really know how well this translates across to, you know, just jamming along with myself, as it were. But I think that's a really cool area of his playing that people should, you know, look to. You know, if you look at, say, Running with the Devil, it was the same kind of thing. That it's the same sort of idea. You know, it's a C triad to a D triad, and all underneath you got the bass. You know, the bass playing that single bass note, playing from a C up to a D, and then a G, and then an A to an E triad. So yeah, I think having a look at some of his different sort of rhythm guitar approaches, or even on Panama in the chorus, there's a similar thing going on there with the riff that he's playing there. You know, he's playing between an E, an A, and a D, and it's all against that kind of driving E bass note on being performed by Michael Anthony. So you come out of the introduction part. There again, more of those kind of moving triads that you know, kind of build up the rhythm part. And also just one other thing that I really love about his playing is his use of open strings within chords. You know, there's that on that C sharp minor chord you hear in the intro. And those kind of things with the sort of droning that.
He would do a lot of that in his lead playing as well, right? Like, is it Ain't Talking About Love that's got that sort of droning E pedal in one of the solos?
Yeah, definitely. On that Ain't Talking About Love part, yeah, he's playing that. You where you've got those the open string playing underneath. So, but there's a chord that I really love, a section in Panama, which is really unusual, where he plays this. It's like F sharp. It's like what would that be? It's an F sharp 11th chord. Quite an unorthodox chord to jump to during a pop song. You come from the verse section. That's kind of a weird, freaky, little chord part to play. It's not something that you'd associate. But then when you look at Van Halen, there's so many of when you listen to their songs, Eddie was able to mix up virtuosic playing, and but not make it disappear up its own backside.
Yeah, that's true.
You could have a song like Drop Dead Legs that had like this crazy Holdsworth style guitar solo and this very unorthodox rhythm part, but at the same time it had groove, like Back in Black. That was the song that inspired Drop Dead Legs, and then the chorus, it's got that big kind of chanting sort of uplifting anthemic chorus thing, but Ed's playing all these crazy triad parts, and his rhythm playing right from the very start was just absolutely inspired. Listen to the shuffle on I'm the One. It's like Stevie Ray Vaughan on speed.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I suppose it's not that surprising that his use of triads is overlooked, because I think triads as a whole are a concept that a lot of guitar players overlook, especially at intermediates. One of the questions I get asked the most as an instructor is, like, how do I highlight the chord tones of a chord progression that I'm playing over? And these people asking these questions are always thinking in terms of scales alone. And I always say, well, triads are like, you need to start thinking, not so much just in terms of scales, but also triads and arpeggios and stuff like that. And of course, they're not just helpful for lead playing, they're equally important for rhythm playing and writing riffs and stuff. And that's something that, Eddie used in his rhythm playing.
That was, that mentioning that thing earlier on where I said about in that section in Panama where he plays over that A chord, you've got that A over, that B over A. For highlighting the sound of modes and creating modal chord progressions, just taking the root note of the mode that you want to play, and say you're in A Dorian, and you take the 1, 4, and 5 of the parent key. That's what I always think. I think I'm more of a key center guitar player, so I always think about relating things back to the major scale. I don't really think so much of modes. So if I want to treat A Dorian as chord 2, I'm thinking of it as chord 2 of G major. Therefore, against my G root note, I can play the G major triad. Against the A root note, I can play the G major triad. I can play the C. I can play the D. So you take triads 1, 4, and 5, which are all the 3 major triads. So in the key of G, that's G, C, and D, but you're playing it against the root note, which is based off of the 2nd degree of the scale to give you a Dorian sound. And you can do that with absolutely every mode, as we saw it with Lydian there playing a B to an A. I think it's such a powerful thing to understand the relationship of triads and how you can utilize those to come up with modal chord progressions. 100%,
totally agree. Yeah. All right, Jamie, thank you for taking the time to talk with me again.
Thank you so much for having me and having me and Frankie today.
So I'm going to give you guys some tone tips for trying to recreate an Eddie Van Halen inspired sound, whether you're using plugins or amps or pedals, whatever. I am using the Archetype Gojira plugin from Neural DSP for everything that you hear in this video, and I'm going to deconstruct my preset and give you some tone tips in the process. So to start with, amp model, There's 3 amp models and cabinets with this Archetype Gojira plugin. I've found that this one here is the highest gain of the bunch, and to my ears it sounds quite 5150, 6505-ish, if you will. So it's perfect for Van Halen style tones, really. I'm gonna turn off all the effects that I'm using in this preset for now, and then we're just gonna listen to the dry amp tone. I'll turn off the EQ as well, and just the dry amp and cab. The cab's got 57 on one speaker and a ribbon mic on the other, and that sounds like this. So nice high gain tone, but pretty dry right now. You know, it's far from complete. Look at how I've got the gain set here. This is my first tip for you. If you want to sound like Van Halen or go after that kind of tone, you don't need as much gain as you might think, okay? So I've got the gain set, it's just up a quarter on the amp, really. Of course, this is a high gain amp, but yeah, that's about all the gain I'll really use for this preset. Now, to make it sound more Van Halen-esque, I mean, I'm using a Telecaster for this. I don't have any humbucker equipped guitars with me because I'm away from my usual studio right now, but I've added in an EQ here just to add a bit more mid-range, which I think just thickens up the sound, which is what I want given that I'm using a single coil equipped guitar for this video. So without the EQ, with it engaged, nice mid-range boost. Okay, so that's it for the EQ. Now I want to add in some delay, and this is perhaps the most important part of this preset in terms of getting it to sound closer to that late 70s Van Halen tone. Because if you listen to those recordings, it sounds like his amp was recorded in quite a spacious room. It's one guitar track, but it almost sounds double tracked. And so what I've done to replicate this kind of vibe in this preset is I've set a delay with just one repeat, and I've set the delay super fast so that it's faster than a slapback delay, and it sounds closer to a sort of double tracked guitar. So here's what it sounds like without the delay, and then I'll add it in after. Let's add in that delay. Hear how that adds a nice sort of double tracked thickening effect. Without it. Okay, so that's how I like to set the delay for getting a nice double tracked sound. And then for reverb, if you want to get it close to that running with the devil tone, not too short, not too long is how I kind of have this reverb set up. It's kind of like a large room or hall style reverb. So without the reverb, it sounds like this. With it engaged. Okay, now let's look at other pedals that we've got here. I do sometimes add in an overdrive set with the distortion all the way down and the level a bit past noon. This is how I would set up a tube screamer going into the front end of an amp, just to give a little bit of a boost and a slight increase in gain. So without it, it sounds like this. With it engaged. It's a really subtle difference there. Okay, that's it for overdrive. The other effect that I've been using in this video at certain points is the phaser. You know, phaser is that's a essential Van Halen effect. Of course, he had that signature MXR Phase 90 pedal. This, you know, this pedal emulation here looks pretty similar, just one control for the rate of the phaser, which you want to have it set quite low for a Van Halen sound. So without it, endless fun with that phaser there. So that's about it for this preset. By the way, if you have the Archetype Gojira plugin, or you're thinking about getting it and you like the sound of this preset, you can download it for free in the description box. There is a link to do that. And so yeah, what are the main takeaways from this? Set the gain on your amp lower than you think you need it to be. Okay, you don't need that much gain and saturation for that late 70s Van Halen tone. Boost the mid-range or adjust the EQ to suit the tonal characteristics of the guitar that you happen to be using. You know, I'm using a single coil equipped Telecaster, so I've boosted the mid-range to thicken it up a bit. In terms of delays and reverbs, you know, I went over how I set up the delay super fast, one repeat for a nice double tracking effect. I will point out that this modulation switch here adds a nice bit of extra thickness to the sound. Here's without the modulation. With it engaged. Not a crazy big difference, but to my ears it does add a nice quality. As for the reverb, again, not too short, not too long, but you know, present enough in the mix. So I hope those tone tips were helpful to those of you chasing that Van Halen sound. I've left links to check out the Archetype Gojira plugin as well as download my preset in the description box below. Alright, that is going to do it for today's video. Thanks again to Jamie Humphries for taking part. Thank you again to Neural DSP for sponsoring yet another video on the channel. I've left links to everything, Jamie's channel, Neural DSP plugins, it's all in the description box, my website as well if you want to check it out. And yeah, hope you guys are doing good. I am forgetting how to talk, so this is a good point to stop the video. Click subscribe if you want to see more videos, the bell notification, like the video and share it, that really helps me out. And I will see you in the next video.